Well, it's March Madness, and we have got one of the greatest Wichita State basketball players in the history of the university joining us this week on Coffee with Chuck.
One of the other Final Four coaches said that you kind of changed Wichita State's offense, your return of your three-point shooting. Can you just talk about what you do bring to the offense and how it has changed?
For me? For me, I feel like I bring an outside shooting presence. I try to be a physical guard on that perimeter and crash the glass as much as I can, give our team second chance opportunities on offense. On defense, I try to do little things that help the unit defend the best we can. And for me, I want to make the little plays, and sometimes that's just doing the dirty work, and that's fine with me as long as we get the win at the end of the day.
Quinn. Baker on the wing, hits the three. Ron Baker.
So you're saying the Falcons are going to beat the favorites in the Super Bowl. That is Rebecca stepping out. Here's Baker for three. He's got another one.
Porzingis gathers. Boy, the Hawks are just all over the Knicks defensively. Baker banks it in. Jeff Hawkins defense by one.
Here's Rose, drives around Tucker. Baker from the corner, nails a three.
18 in the defeat yesterday in Canada. Baker from the corner.
Carmelo, a very unselfish play.
Down to Noah. Baker. Fourth three. Ron Baker hits his second three-pointer in the opening quarter. Takes it out to the Knick logo at midcourt. Lets it fly.
Oh man, he wanted that shot all the way.
Baker sets his feet.
Well, Baker is an excellent shooter.
Hernan Gomez takes it back out. Ron Baker the drive. Nice scoop shot underneath.
He's going to have a chance to meet all the fans who are in the house to watch him play, guys.
Thanks, Rebecca. He was smiling in all the pictures, so nothing has changed.
Most fans are wondering now, Mike, where do the Knicks go from here?
Right, that's Baker. Nice move. Gets a roar from the crowd. He's become a fan favorite.
He's only 23, and he shoots outside. He's got hops inside. He's 6'10". That'll be Ron Baker. They like the kid from Wichita, though.
Very helter-skelter. No smoothness in their game right now.
Ron Baker takes it all the way.
I mentioned to Baker, I told him earlier, I told him keep penetrating it.
Knicks lead by one. Here is Baker. He puts up a three and hits. Oh, knocks down a three for Manning. Second quarter from the Garden. Baker for Hernan Gomez.
Baker creating. Hernan Gomez, elusive, off the glass.
They both played for Real Madrid, so they were very familiar with each other. Lead pass from Hernan Gomez to Ron Baker, who slams it down.
Can't believe it's over, Kenny.
Does go pretty quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Baker. Ron Baker.
Beautiful block shots this year. Racino deflected by Baker. Baker goes flying into the stands. Wisniewski throws him down.
Baker shakes hand with the fan that he hit. It happens to be Ben Stiller.
I left my coffee inside, Chuck. I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay. We'll send you a mug, though, so next time you can enjoy your coffee in a Jag K mug. Ron Baker, thank you for joining us on Coffee with Chuck. We really appreciate the time. You have spent time with our Hutchinson High program, and actually the connection was made because of a former track star at Wichita State University, Marcus Mader. Can you tell us a little bit about your relationship with Marcus and how that all came about?
Marcus and I are the same age. The first memory I have with him is going against him in Knights of Columbus free throw competition. Me and him made it to the regional site, and I ended up beating him in Quinter, Kansas.
Wow.
But since then, Marcus has kind of had this little chip on his shoulder, thinking he's better free throw shooter than me. But the past shows that I am.
There is documentation. There's apparently a record of this. So he can talk, but you have the hardware.
Yep. And then about fast forward 6 years later, we're freshmen in the dorms together at Wichita State. And then a year later, we end up being roommates throughout our 4 years of college. So Marcus has been a good friend since about 2011. And we both obviously graduated from Wichita State. So great friends.
Yes. Well, and you both grew up in rural Kansas. As I understand it, actually Utica is your hometown,
Correct.
which is very small.
Yeah,
And
I think
you
there's
went to
250 people there when I was growing up, and Marcus is from La Crosse, which is also on Highway 4, just about 45 miles from me.
Okay. So tell us, how did you start at Scott City, which is a 3A school? I believe it still is a 3A school. How did you get from 3A Scott City to playing in the Final Four at Wichita State? And for those who don't know, literally in my introduction, I said one of the greatest players at Wichita State University. That's not me opining on that. There actually was a fan vote a few years ago, and the fans said you were in the top five, one of the top five greatest players ever at Wichita State University. And Wichita State has had some great players over the years and really good teams, but there's probably not a better era of basketball for Wichita State than when you were a player on that team. Final Four, undefeated regular season, just an amazing run. But it all started at Scott City High. So how did you get to Wichita State?
Scott City, like you said, 3A school, very small, tight-knit community, blue-collared, whatever you earn, I mean, you get. Mainly a football school, to be honest. We had really good teams in the 90s, football-wise, and we were always just a competitive team, and that's kind of the culture out there, is just competitive. The community really backs sports. We started becoming a basketball school in the early 2000s with some good teams in 06, 07, and then from about 11 to now, we're just really competitive in basketball. And growing up, I had role models like Kirk Heinrich and Nick Collison that I looked up to that played for KU. And I always just had this passion and drive to be a good basketball player. And Scott City was instilled in me just a competitive nature. And that culture out there kind of pushed me forward to want to play at the college level. Wichita State started recruiting me late my senior year when we made it to Hutch in the state tournament. There we played very well and ended up winning state. And Wichita State reached out and wanted me to become a preferred walk-on that next fall in 2011. Being from Kansas, we all know about KU and K-State. I was not very familiar with the 80s teams that Wichita State had that were very successful, and obviously in the 60s when they made it to a Final Four. I'm a 90s kid, so I didn't really know the rich history here. But my dad kind of informed me about how prestigious this program was, and we took a visit here, and it just felt right to stay home, stay in the state of Kansas, and go to school at Wichita.
You were a good high school player, really good. I actually went back and watched some video, a highlight reel. I don't know what game it was, but you weren't highly recruited. You mentioned Wichita State, but there were a lot of Division I. Well, that may have been the only Division I. I don't know. You maybe had a couple other schools that were looking at you.
Sure. I had two offers. One was South Dakota State and Arkansas Little Rock, both about 10 hours away from home.
Okay. Did that frustrate you? Because you were all state, all conference.
Right.
What was your mindset at that time when maybe because you said you grew up a KU fan,
Right.
And Bill Self later said they missed it. I mean, there was a press conference that we should have recruited Ron, but
I would say that there was a lot of people that made a mistake on Ron, and we would certainly be one of them that made a mistake because we were not aware of him in the way in which I wish we would have been aware of him, because obviously anybody would love to have him in their uniform. But
did that also give you some incentive to?
I don't think it was frustration. I think it was more along the lines of just motivation. Fortunate enough, we had the chance to play KU when I was here, and we were successful against them. So it all came full circle.
Time is running out on Kansas. To Cale Cotton, the high point man with 19, a terrific second half. Strong all-around performance by Fred Van Vliet. And Ron Baker back in the offense. He had 12. How about 4 threes for Evan Russell? And that will do it.
Not getting recruited by K-State or KU, like I said, was more of just motivation. Wichita State's a good Division I program and a good conference at the time, and I accepted that. And when I got here, it was kind of like a dream come true. I was playing Division I basketball out of high school. That was my dream. And once I got here, I was around better players than I was in high school, and I needed to start working hard to compete at that level, and was fortunate enough to be around players that enjoyed the game just as much as I did.
Right. And you talked about motivation. So you came in and again, Wichita State has a storied program. In the 90s, maybe you hadn't followed it, but I grew up in the 80s and I knew MTXE and, just the Battle of New Orleans against KU in the NCAA tournament. And so when did you realize, I mean, obviously you signed with them and went as the preferred walk-on, but when did you realize that, this really turned out well for me? I'm with a Division I program. We've got a coach that's good. I've got some great teammates. This is really going to be something over the next 4 or 5 years.
Freshman year, when I started playing, we had some guys that had actually sat out with me. Malcolm Armstead was one of them, and he was about 3 years older than me. And I was still kind of wet behind the ears as a player. I was kind of questioning my confidence here and there. But throughout this summer, Malcolm and when Fred Van Vliet got there that summer, they both like, Ron, you're pretty good. And when you had teammates kind of supporting you and pushing you each and every day like those two, the game started to become a little easier. I was not stressing as much. I started playing really good that freshman year, and I was gaining that confidence and realized that I belonged at that peak of basketball. And when you taste success at that level, it makes you want to work just that much harder to continue to succeed.
You redshirted your first year, and then so that was a kind of a development year too.
Right.
When you said your teammates helped you gain some confidence, they encouraged you. When there were other times that maybe you saw some obstacles in front of you, what were some of the other things that may have helped help you overcome those barriers or those obstacles in addition to your teammates?
Basketball teaches us a lot of things. So when I talk about my teammates putting kind words in my mind, confidence, feeding me confidence, in life, whoever we surround ourselves with is kind of who we tend to become. I mentioned earlier role models. As a kid, we all had those people we looked up to. You can study those people. You can try your hardest to become them, and being around good people and treating people with respect is probably the biggest thing I try to live by each day. And when you do that on a basketball court as well, I think it tends to aid you to become a better player and also a better person.
And you had to battle through some injuries throughout your career, not only in college, but later, recently, I think even. What gave you kind of that extra push to? Because it's easy, somebody told me once the hardest time to quit is the first time, and then after that, it just gets easier. What kind of kept you going when maybe things weren't going well?
Sure. I think it just goes back to those around you. I redshirted my freshman year and obviously set out for 12 months, basically, just practicing, not being able to play. Took a lot of mental toughness and realization that I had to sit out that long. And in my first year, I played 10 games and got hurt and sat out that entire season. But I think just the people around me were just kind of by my side, making sure that they knew I was going to heal up. They knew I was going to help this team down the road. There was just that belief that they kept feeding me to keep me to, keep the tunnel vision. I tell people this a lot. That year I got hurt, I missed 11 weeks of that season. And I think in those 11 weeks, I became a better player because I had guys around me that believed in me. They made sure I was, getting to physical therapy, getting healthy, because they knew that I was going to be needed down the road. And when you have people around you that aid you like that, it makes your journey so much easier, and it makes you just want to obviously do the right thing each and every day to get better, to get back to who you are.
And that first year you were playing, you had a great NCAA tournament, as I recall. And so obviously those 11 weeks or whatever it was that it paid off when it needed to. But you talked about tunnel vision. What was your goal at that time? Because you got a D1 scholarship, playing on the biggest stage in the NCAA. But at that time, what was your goal? Were you thinking beyond Wichita State?
I always had dreams growing up to be a professional player. But when I got here, it was almost like the focus was day to day. Obviously, teams have goals, but sometimes when you're thinking goal all the time, you start loosening up on your day to day and relaxing. And I really think that's why we are so successful here in Wichita is we had guys that were pros and they could probably care less about where they were going to get drafted or where they were going to go play professionally. All we had was today. And we treated each day the best we could. We prepared the best we could. And on game nights, it definitely showed where our focus was, I felt like.
And is that how you approached life before you got to Wichita State? Was that just how it was, or was that instilled in you by the staff, or a little of both?
Definitely have to credit the staff here at Wichita. They were really, really good with us about taking each day that's given to us and using it to our advantage. Both my parents were teachers growing up, so I had the privilege at a young age to try instill in myself that the importance of each day and how we treat people and how we go about our business is very important. I always had dreams growing up, but dreams don't happen overnight. It's kind of like chopping down a tree. You can't, unless you're Thor, you're not chopping down that tree overnight. That it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort over a long period to get that tree to fall. And as a kid, I always kind of just thought, today's a nice day. Let's go play some ball, or let's go to the park and enjoy it. And over time, my goals were finally reached, and I'd have to credit that to my peers and the people I looked up to.
At some point, though, you thought you had to have known, okay, I could take this to the next level. Still not looking beyond the task at hand, the next goal, the next game, whatever. But you came back your senior year. There was some thought that maybe you wouldn't, that you'd leave after your junior year. But obviously you went back to Wichita State. Was it your senior year then, or your junior year? Or when did you think, yeah, I could probably make money doing this?
My junior year, that thought was in my mind pretty much every day. Like, I'd be watching film and I would kind of daydream about, becoming an NBA player. And then I had to like center myself and, like you said, put blinders on and focus on what was in front of me. And our culture at Wichita was so good that throughout the year, I started caring less about what my future held, because I loved my day-to-day, because I surrounded myself with these great teammates. I had a great staff when I was here, and I was just in it for them at that point. So when you surround yourself, not only in sports, but just out in this world, you surround yourself with good people, your day-to-day becomes fun. It becomes something you love, and your dreams and your goals will eventually just take care of themselves.
Yeah. So you ultimately did make it on the biggest stage in professional basketball, which and really literally with the New York Knicks, like the largest media market in the country. I can't even imagine what Knicks fans are like, but they really embraced you because you worked hard every second you were on the floor. And you were in the summer league first. You did the summer league. What was it like when you suited up the first time in the New York Knicks uniform and got out there on the floor?
Obviously, extremely nervous. I'm not even gonna deny that. But I remember it like yesterday. I checked into my first NBA game at Madison Square Garden. I started the second half of an exhibition game, and sitting at that scores table, everything I'd ever done throughout my entire life just all hit me at once. All the hard work, all the sacrifices my family made for me, taking me to MAYB tournaments at a young age, playing junior high, playing high school, all those memories just collided as I walked onto that court, and realizing that I had reached the peak of my profession was just a surreal moment. And it was almost like I was thanking all those that had done what they had done for me to get me to that state.
And probably beating Marcus in free throws. That was probably one.
The first thing that came to my mind.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Because now Marcus can say he took second to an NBA player.
There you go. See, once again, it was all about Marcus.
100%. Always has been.
So, so clearly that had to be a highlight, at least a sports highlight in your life. Are there a couple of others that you can think of? Maybe not as big, or they could be, but what are some other things? Final Four, I would guess, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. What could have been something off the court too?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I lived in New York, I lived in a really nice area called the Upper West Side, which is about 2 blocks from Central Park. And getting to see my friends and family coming to visit me from Kansas, and me knowing where I was going throughout New York, and sometimes seeing how overwhelmed they were in New York City, is just a memory I have personally that I'll never forget. Taking friends to Central Park. One memory that really stands out is I had my best friend that I went to elementary with, and Allen Iverson and I have the same agent. And after the game, AI was down in the garage where all the vehicles were, and he introduced himself to me, and we talked for about 5 minutes, and I went on my way. And I remember turning around, and my friend is just jaw to the ground, just staring at AI. And he goes, dude, you just talked to Allen Iverson. I was like, yeah, we got the same exit. And just those feelings of almost like, wow, I'm really at this pedestal, and all my friends and family get to come along and witness kind of what I'm going through. And that was just a warm feeling inside me that memories, obviously, I'll always remember.
What about some of the more challenging times or things that you kind of had to pick yourself up off the floor and say, hey, I'll persevere?
One thing I will say is, us NBA players, we live great lives, but you only play basketball 4 hours out of your day. So from 10 to 2 is obviously our craft. But when you go home, you're in a random city. Like New York's not home to me. It's just where I work. So there was days where I was just kind of a little lonely. I'd be homesick. Even at age 24, I miss Kansas. That's where I'm from. Obviously, New York City has a lot to offer, but most of your friends that you make in New York City are working at 2:30 in the afternoon. So there was days where you're missing out on things back home that you care about, family birthdays. I hate to say this, but I miss a couple, family funerals, like things you have to sacrifice as a pro athlete. Those things kind of nag at you, but obviously extremely fortunate nonetheless. But those are things that I struggled with. It was kind of a little adversity. I was almost sacrificing being away from family and friends when I was in the NBA, and it was definitely tough at times.
Well, you had become accustomed to being a celebrity when you were at Wichita State. I'm sure you were recognized a lot in Wichita. New York's such a bigger place, even though the NBA is a professional league. Did you have any of those same experiences, or could you be a little bit more anonymous?
Yeah, like under the radar kind of. So New York culture and Kansas culture, obviously very different. Wichita, when I was in school, we would go out and eat dinner somewhere, and someone would always come to the table, say hi, or want a picture, which was great. I loved doing that. Never had any issues with that here. But like you said, pretty much always noticed no matter where I went in Wichita. Fast forward, go to New York City, and I didn't have to wear a hat when I was there. I could walk around, and people in New York City are in such a hurry. They're always wanting to get from A to B as quick as possible. You walking on the street, guy would tip his cap at you, say, hey, Ron, how's it going? Good, be on your way. So just totally different circumstances, obviously, but it was just a different environment that you were in New York City, and how people live their day to day is obviously different than here. Those are some things I picked up on.
Most kids who pick up a basketball at a young age are not going to go to a Division I program or play. Certainly not make it in professional basketball. So it's a very small number of people that get that opportunity, who have the skills, the talent necessary to do it. So most people are going to have to go professional in some other job. But some of the lessons that you've told us about basketball apply to other professions as well. You mentioned having good people around you, and you had focused kind of on the day at hand in basketball. Are there some other tips that you could give people just generally to be successful in whatever their chosen career path might be?
There was a class I took in college, Sports Management 101. So just the introductory sports management class. And the first thing the teacher told us that day was, it's not what you know. It's not who you know. It's who knows you. And that resonated with me, because now that I'm done playing basketball, I can walk around town and I can network with some people around town, and they obviously know me from basketball, but now I'm trying to get them to remember me because I'm a good person. And in today's age, everyone likes to talk, good or bad. But if someone's talking good about you and you walk into a job interview, you just upped your chances just because someone talked highly of you. So I would just encourage people to treat others how you want to be treated. The more professional you act in any given circumstance is always going to be, I'd just say, more convenient for you down the road. We've all done silly things at a certain age and wish we could take back, but if you got to start today treating others with respect and making the right decisions when no one's looking, I would encourage you to do so.
Mm-hmm. And so what is next for you? What when you're 55, well, you may want to just be enjoying life at 55, but let's say there's another vocation. What do you see then in your future?
Well, I just settled down here in Wichita. I got a nice home on the east side of town. Wichita has always been kind of where I wanted to reside. 3.5 hours from my family in western Kansas. If I had to tell you what I wanted to do next, I can't because I just don't know. But I still want to be a person that impacts the community. Obviously, with COVID, it's kind of tough to do that right now. But when things get back to normal, I'll definitely dive into the community the best I can. I graduated with a finance degree from Wichita, so lucky for me, I took education very seriously, and I have a degree, so I can lean back on that if need be. But something in business has always interested me. I'd love to stay around the game the best I can, whether it be maybe coaching down the road. I'm not sure. But right now, I'm really just trying to relax and enjoy the things I kind of missed out on these past 4.5 years being a professional. Something I've told a couple people around town is this past Thanksgiving and Christmas, obviously COVID was kind of limiting numbers as far as going back home and seeing your entire family. But for me, Thanksgiving and Christmas, it was the first time my 5 close family members, we got to spend Christmas together since 2010.
Wow.
So just being back home, relaxing, enjoying the little things is kind of where my mind is right now. And, when things start to normalize and get back to normal, I'll definitely put my right foot forward and try and pursue something that I enjoy day to day. And like you said, when I'm 55, hopefully, my grass is green. I got a beautiful family, and I can look back and not regret on any of the things I've decided to do.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Ron, we appreciate the time, the example you set. You're welcome to visit any JAG K program anywhere in the state. We know you have friends throughout. Maybe we'll get you to our Hayes program with Trey and certainly Hutch, but we have programs in Wichita as well. We appreciate what you've already done for JAG K and talking to a class, and thanks for sharing your wisdom and sharing your story with us.
Oh, I don't know if I shared any wisdom. I still got a long ways to go to, become Confucius or anything like that. But I appreciate you, Chuck. This is great. I know you're in this for the right reasons, and I've heard a lot of good things about, JAG. So proud of you guys and what you guys are about.
Thank you. And for the rest of you, enjoy your coffee.